welcome to Crypt Walkers, the podcast where the eerie and enigmatic come to life. Hosted by Ryder, a police officer and paranormal investigator with a lens for the unexplained. Open the crypt. Come take a walk with us.
Hey guys, and welcome back to part 2 of our case episode on the Point Pleasant phenomenon. In part 1 of our deep dive into the legend of the Mothman, we unraveled the raw history of the 1966 sightings, mapping out the initial terror near the TNT plant, the surge of high strangeness across West Virginia, and the shadow of tragedy that ultimately brought the sightings to a sudden halt. But history only tells half the story. To understand how a year of terror transformed a small river town into the epicenter of American high strangeness, you have to look at how these archives, eyewitness accounts, and artifacts are preserved today. Joining us inside the vault for part 2 is Olivia Dunn, representing the world-famous Mothman Museum right in the heart of Point Pleasant. She's surrounded daily by the primary source evidence, the original police reports, the living history of the town that stared right into those glowing red eyes. Olivia, welcome to Crypt Walkers. It is a pleasure to have you on tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm quite excited.
We had a little bit of audio issues at the beginning, but I think we did just fine getting it going. But I'm really genuinely excited to dig into this with you today because honestly, this has got to be one of the most incredible cases I've covered so far on Crypt Walkers. I mean, you've got a terrifying cryptid, full-blown UFO encounters, and of course all the strange paranormal activity that people witnessed. And let's not forget the dark shadow of the Silver Bridge. So it really has everything. Yeah. So, well, I guess to begin, just tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get into all this?
So I lived in Point Pleasant for a while before I started working at the museum. And to be honest with you, I never really had any kind of interest in, the Mothman stuff and whatnot. I had seen the statue. I'd, walked in the museum, maybe been inside once. But then I ended up working there. And it was kind of they squeezed me in, I say. I knew somebody who knew somebody who knew Jeff and Julie, who then hired me. And I think I also put graphic design on my resume. I did that. I'd edited newspapers for a year in college.
Really? Okay.
Well, I did it for one semester. I worked at the newspaper, the student newspaper at the college I went to. And then when I came home, I put that on my resume, and Jeff just so happens to be really into graphic design. He does the design for most of our t-shirts and stuff. That's his thing. He was a teacher doing that sort of stuff. So he saw that, and with my recommendation, I think he was like, all right, we'll let you in. But honestly, at the time, I was the only one there who wasn't related to the family or had known the family for years and years and years. So I do consider myself really lucky to not be working there, with everyone. But I didn't know anything about Mothman, and it's just so happened that I got a cool job, and it just so happens it's the coolest job in the whole world. So,
So how long have you been working there?
I have been there. It would have been 2 years. Maybe 2 years in June, I think. June, July, something like that.
Okay.
Beginning of summer-ish. Or I guess that's dead of summer. Either way, somewhere in the summertime, I started working here about 2 years ago. So I've been not there as long as, some people have, but I'd say I've become, I don't know, maybe a 3-star dictionary on Mothman at this point. I listened to a lot of documentaries over and over again, so the facts are kind of fried in there.
Yeah, and the fact that, like we said in our intro, I mean, you're surrounded by the actual newspapers and the police reports associated with it. We talked a little bit about in part 1 that this was events that weren't just, this didn't just happen and then that was it. I mean, this was hundreds of people witnessed these this entity at different points, or encountered different things. Heck, we talked in part 1 about the UFO situation. I mean, this was over the span of like a year, correct?
Yes. Yeah. It was actually, that's the crazy part about it, is that a lot of people, they come in and they have the impression through either the movie or through news or just local legend that, Mothman came in and then knocked the bridge down, was never seen again, yada, yada. But when you look into it, you see that the very first sighting of Mothman was actually 13 months to the day of the bridge collapse. So there's a lot of not even overlap, but just like the coincidences, they just keep coming up the more you look into it. And when I tell people that, they're like really surprised because, what do you mean? Like, yeah, like, and like you said, over 100 people saw it back in the 60s, at least in Point Pleasant. And there was also just a lot of other weird stuff going on.
Yeah. Has anything like that happened since, or?
Honestly, cryptid related, not that I know of. I know that there was a guy that blew up one of the TNT bunkers a while back, but other than that, I haven't heard. And then I guess he blew up his
redneck with some explosives. So.
Yeah, so I don't even know how we got access to the bunker or whatever, but I don't know if there's been any kind of paranormal stuff happening. We do have a lot of people that come in, and there's a lot of people come in that do paranormal investigation and stuff like that. But you do hear weird, creepy stuff out in the TNT, but I honestly do my best to not be out there when the creepy times are, just for safety purposes. But honestly, there's ghosts in most of the buildings on Main Street in Point Pleasant, and if you ask anybody, they'll tell you there's a ghost up here. Yes, it is. It's definitely very old.
Yeah.
But that means the buildings are even more like if you go up to the upstairs of any of them, they're like a maze. It's crazy. So it just makes it even creepier and even kind of cooler in that way. Yeah, so.
That's awesome. Yeah, I noticed that you call it the TNT. Is that like the nickname for that area, or is that like the actual facility, or?
So I don't. Well, the technical name for it is the McClintock Wildlife Management Area, and after the TNT factory building shut down, it kind of just became, like one of those things, like kids would go out there and, hang out. The building's since been torn down. I think they tore it down in like the early 90s or something. But
the bunkers are still there,
though. The locals. Yes, yeah. Most of except for the one that guy blew up. Most of them are out there. So, but yeah, locals kind of call it the TNT area, and it's just because they used to. I don't know what the actual building, if it was called the TNT factory building, but that's at least just because they stored the bunkers. They used the bunkers to store TNT and other explosives and ammunition because it was a ammunitions manufacturing plant. That's just what they ended up calling it. And so I don't know who brought it up, but it stuck.
Yeah, if I remember correctly from my my notes, it was used heavily during World War II. Like they had a lot of ammunition storage back then, and then yeah, but it's interesting. I like how you guys call it the TNT, because like, who the heck wants to call it whatever wildlife name? It's
such a mouthful. Like, there's no reason. Just be fun about it.
And of course, the police officer in me is like imagining a bunch of teenagers out there partying and being like, see no evil, hear no evil, don't get in trouble. Yeah. I don't want to hear about it. Just don't die.
Yeah, that's rule number 1.
But so speaking of teenagers, right? Now I don't know. I can't remember if they were teenage couples or not, but they were 2 young couples that were traveling out in that area on the night of November 15th, 1966. I think this was like the kickoff of where this started. Can you tell me a little bit more about what your thoughts are on their encounter, or?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we refer to that as the original Mothman sighting or the Scarberry and Mallet sighting. Those couples, I don't know if they were married at the time, but I think they actually were. The Scarberry Mallet sighting, like you said, 4 teenagers out in the classic 57 Chevy. And they were out there drag racing and stuff. The TNT at that time had become like a lover's lane, like a teenage hangout. They go out there and be stupid, do teenage stuff. And yeah, they were out there by themselves, and at a certain point,
condone. The police officer is like, well, now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, the road, I believe it's Potter's Creek, the one that you turn down to get out there. It's like the perfect drag racing road. It's just this big, long stretch all the way out. So, I mean, I can't blame them, honestly, for going out there and doing that. And I mean, in a cool car. Who wouldn't,
I mean, I had a Camaro in high school, so I've done some stupid things.
There you go. But, so yeah, they were just out there, and then allegedly this big moth guy, he's like this, they described him as a at least 6 foot tall with at least a 7 to 10 foot wingspan, and that jumps on the hood of their car, and it's, freaking them out. They're scared to death. Eventually it jumps back up. They don't see it for a second, but they race into town, and then they realize that the creature is hovering above the car and keeping up with them. And according to Roger Scarberry, he said that he was going 80, 90 miles out that road trying to get back into town, and the thing was keeping up with him the whole time. So, I mean, it freaked him out enough to, like, actually go to the police and say, hey, we were out here doing this thing we're not supposed to, and we saw this crazy thing. So,
wow.
Please believe us. Yeah, like telling the cops that you did 90 miles an hour, that to me is even like
a little bit of credibility that you're... Yeah. It's like, hey, I in the commission of committing a crime, I saw this thing, and you might want to know about it.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, well, that's kind of cool. So they go and they tell the police. I'm guessing it kind of becomes the first documented at that point, because obviously they did they take our police report, or?
Yeah, absolutely. They took down their the handwritten police reports are on display at the museum now. That's like the first section of our gallery piece that you walk into. But yeah, they took down the first police reports, and after that it just kind of spread. And everyone was out seeing it, and the more and more people saw it, the more and more people were looking for it. There were people out in the TNT area after that, like lines of cars and guys with shotguns ready to just absolutely blow this thing to bits, trying to get rid of it. I mean, they're scared, and it's right after like big war and stuff like that. So I get it, and you're like a tight community and whatnot. But I personally think that they were being a little dramatic about it. But you know what? What would you do? What would you do back in the 60s other than, hey, let's go get this darn thing? So fair enough.
Well,
but yeah,
I mean,
he went out there and looked for it and everything.
There was also I'm forgetting the name right now. I know I mentioned it in part 1, but I'm forgetting his name or her name. I can't remember if it was a she or him. But they this neighbor lady basically found that her dog was missing, and they believed that the Mothman had taken the dog. So
there were a couple of cases of that. I can't remember. I don't think his name is Don. I don't remember what his name is exactly, but there was there's this case that plays, or this sighting supposedly that plays in the museum that I hear all the time about this guy who was sitting down and watching TV with his family, and the TV started going insane and started making this high-pitched noise, and it got all fuzzy on the screen, and then the glass blew out of the screen, and he went outside because his dog was barking at the door. He let his dog out, grabbed his shotgun, walked outside to see what was going on. His dog runs out to the woods, and he doesn't see anything, but his dog does not come back. And he goes out looking for it the next day, still nothing. And supposedly, that sort of thing was happening at the time. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff also with like alien sightings going on at the time too, that are kind of supposed like, hey, we're picking your dogs up and taking them. Same thing with livestock. A lot of livestock disappeared, or like had been found passed away, during that time. So, and with all the farmland going on, when that stuff starts happening, people notice it pretty quickly. So yeah, it's just, I don't know if Mothman was picking up animals, but I guess he had a good purpose for him or something. If he was.
Oh, I mean, he was apparently a pretty massive creature. I mean, man's got to eat. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So what? And I know that I alluded to it in part one. The UFO sightings. Can you tell me a little bit about the visitor that they had that basically, kind of, alluded to things that were going to come? Can you tell me anything about that?
In as far as like UFOs go, like alien encounters, or as far as like, okay, so I have read a book or two about this. Are you referring to Indrid Cold or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I read Visitors of Lanulos recently, and it was a transformative experience, I will say. That book is absolutely insane. Yes, it's absolutely insane. I highly recommend everyone read it. It's crazy, but you read it and you're like, wow, maybe these alien people, they really know what's up. Like maybe they really understand how to live life, and I mean, they're just like us. So yeah, that whole thing, what is his name? It's very
well, because
short.
he's described
Woody
as being very human-like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And in Visitors of Lanulos, that's exactly what he says, is that he looks very formal, like slick back hair, and but he feels very casual and like he's talking to you as a friend, and he talks to you almost immediately telepathically in a lot of case scenarios if you look at the the sightings and things like that. But yeah, he's just some guy that comes up and he's like, hey, just want to let you know we're here, but we'll be seeing you again later. And then he gets in a spaceship and leaves. And you had to just drive on the highway back home, I guess. That's like the majority of the thing. But it's so interesting because if you read Visitors of Lanulos, Woody Derenberger talks about his entire life and the lives of his children, and including his wife, being... I mean, him specifically, his wife and children were kind of separated from it, apparently. But he was very much like close with Indrid Cold and Indrid Cold's family and his fellow friends and brothers and things like that, and even later on his children.
Really?
I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy book. Now, I don't know if I necessarily take everything with a grain of salt, obviously.
A little bit of grain of salt, yeah.
But the book does a very good job at explaining a lot of his experiences.
The big story that we hear is, and it was during these weird events that were occurring in and around Point Pleasant. And I'm forgetting his name right off the top of my head. I should be better at names. But where it was something similar to how the Mothman kind of chased the vehicle, and then it just kind of like hovered, this craft, this UFO craft, was chasing the guy, hovered, basically cut him off, and then Cole got out and just started talking, telepathically to the driver and being like, hey, everything's cool, don't worry. Had this kind of conversation with him, and then that was it. That's as far as really the story goes. I think there was a couple more times where people around town witnessed the same person / entity, I guess you could say, alien, however you want to put it. But yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, the book that you're talking about makes it seem like there was a lot more after that. Like a lot more content.
Yeah. That's what I thought too. And when you read about just Indrid Cold generally, it's exactly that. Like, and it is mentioned in the book how others saw the same aircraft the same evening, and honestly the same evenings that Woody Derenberger ended up seeing him, and being stopped by it, and then the Cold actually coming out and talking to these people and all that sort of stuff. So there's multiple sightings of that. But in the book, apparently Woody Derenberger spent like upwards of 2 decades hanging out with these guys. He claims to have even gone to Lanulos, the place where Indrid Cold is from, and had flown his ship, and like he talks about all kinds of crazy stuff. And like, I want to, in my bones, I'm like, well, it's so well written, like I really want to believe it.
Yeah, you want to believe it. Yeah,
I want to believe it so bad, and it's just so crazy. And he goes in very much into depth about the societal values of the Lanulosians, as he calls them. And like how they're nudists and they have conveyor belts as sidewalks and like all kinds of crazy, how they believe in God. Like it's absolutely,
My
they all speak
goodness.
telepathically. It's absolutely insane. It's genuinely insane. And I don't know if I believe any of that part, but he goes into depth about how he would have these meetings and he would go travel and how Indrid Cold and his buddies would just be hanging out in the backyard, and he's got like a crowd of people around his. Woody Derenberger has a crowd of people around his house trying to see these aliens and talk to him about these aliens. And he's like,
God.
nah, I don't want to talk to you guys. And he just goes in the back, and apparently the whole spaceship is just in the backyard. Like that's how closely related he says he is to these aliens and all that sort of thing.
Wow.
But I that, like I said, I don't know if any of it's true, but I was highly entertained by this book. It's like less than 200 pages long. 10 out of 10.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Really?
It's
we're
great
gonna have to put that in the link. We're gonna have to put that in the show notes, because I'll be honest with you, like this is Ryder stepping out of his comfort zone a little bit. Okay, I don't mean to put myself in third person there because that's awkward, but I'm a ghost guy. Okay, I'm a spirits, demons, angels box, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, well, this is a paranormal podcast. So, not everybody who listens to paranormal podcasts are just into the same things I am. So I'm like, all right, I need to like dive a little bit more into cryptids and things like that, and UFOs and strange mysteries and stuff. Even if I don't necessarily fully believe in it, it's funny that I say that I don't necessarily believe in cryptids as much as I believe in something that you can't see. So that's interesting.
I mean, everyone has their thing,
Explain that. So I definitely don't just write it off. I think that, especially in this situation with the Mothman, because you had hundreds of people that were all describing the exact same thing, and it wasn't like they were kind of pre-charged with it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like people were kind of slowly talking about it and it kind of ramped up into hysteria. No, I mean, this all kind of happened within a short time frame, and in a town, which, by the way, is good old fashioned, Americana, where you don't talk about such crazy stuff. You know what I mean? Like, this is not something you want to talk about. Like, that's why even with the UFO stuff, I'm like, I wonder if there was more incidences that just was not documented because people just didn't want other people to know about it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. Is it Scarberry?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember reading some, some inserts, or excerpts, excuse me, where it talked about how, I mean, it took a lot for them to come out and like talk about this stuff. And then especially over the years. But no, that's an interesting tangent though, that you go from, because this is all happening at the same time. You have the Mothman, and then you have suddenly this UFO track that just kind of kicks off.
And it's
to the
it's
other
so
side.
weird because I mean he lived in the Point Pleasant area, but exactly like that. Like there was kind of this side story going on a little bit out of the way, and I mean him and his. In the book, he talks about him and his family having to move away. They lived in Virginia for a long time because the crowds of people, the droves of people were coming to their house and, trying to talk to them. And, late into the night, it was scaring his family, like the whole thing. And exactly like you said, like how many people have had this experience and just haven't said anything because they're afraid of the ridicule that they face. And a lot of them did face ridicule. I spoke to Connie Carpenter a couple months into me working at the museum, and she's infamous for not wanting to speak about, her Mothman sighting because it, traumatized her so bad. And when she spoke to me, it was, like I said, about 2 months into me working in the museum. And at that time, I was like, well, it's kind of just a job, it was like the kitschy thing
I'm just making
in my
a paycheck,
town.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm just nodding and smiling and taking pictures of people in front of the Mothman stuff, whatever. And then she came in and talked to me, and she said that she had nightmares about it then. She still has nightmares about it to this day. The eye condition that she attracted after the fact still affects her to this day. Scared to death. She did not walk back into the museum. So there's like a gift shop, and you walk through the door into the actual museum at the store. And she refused to go back. She stood near the door the entire time she was in the museum. Like you could tell by her body language, the way she was speaking. She was very uncomfortable being in there. So, I mean, it really does affect these people. Yeah. And even Roger Scarberry came in, like, I want to say it was right before Connie, that summer. And he gave Jeff a whole nother interview, which that's what he came there for. He was like, I'm getting older and I want people to know my story.
Documented.
Yeah. And it was exactly the same as the one that he gave back in the day, like the multiple accounts that he gave to newspapers. All of his facts are exactly the same as they were back in the 60s. So these are
from a police officer's perspective, that means something, because somebody's lying,
changes things.
If somebody's lying, 9 times out of 10, the story will change depending on who they're talking to. Right.
Right.
And so, and the other thing too is say a lie and then try to repeat that same lie years down the road, and it's just not gonna come into fruition. It's just not gonna be the same. But if you have an actual experience, then it's tied, it's seared into your. Now there might be elements that change a little bit, you might forget that somebody was there with you. I've encountered that before, where it's like, well, there was 4 of us there, and then you talk to another witness that for a fact was there, and then they're like, no, there was only 3 of us, but they're not wrong. It's just that's how you remember it. So, but anyway, I digress. But it's really cool that he came in and got that documented, and really had the courage to do that. And this is important for our listeners to know, is that, these are real people. Like, this isn't, despite whatever we're talking about the UFO stuff, but these are actual, real people who are bear witness to this. You know what I mean? We had a whole list of people that we spoke about in part 1. This is a real thing. This was a real community that really, really encountered this in the span of a year.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of them, because of the scrutiny that they faced back in the day, they've moved and they don't want to come back, because they know that if they show up, then the people, even though it's been 60 years, they're going to come back and be like, oh, remember that one time you lied? And now this whole place is just known for Mothman. And honestly, some people in the town don't love that Mothman has become the identity of Point Pleasant.
Yeah.
But obviously they faced a very hard time with the bridge collapse and all that. So that's a no-brainer. Like, you have a right to be mad that, that terrible things happened to you. And now this creature is what is associated to the tragedy of your loved ones. And I think that that's another thing that people forget a lot of the time when they come in.
Yeah.
Is that
I can
understand.
I can understand where it's like, it's almost like you're disrespecting my family member if you say that, oh, well, the Mothman broke the bridge. And it's like, I actually don't believe that. I don't believe that the bridge was destroyed by the Mothman. I lean more into, I believe that maybe there is a little bit of harbinger of doom elements to there. But I don't think that it was caused by the Mothman. I think that, if I remember correctly, it was number 330. It was a link.
An I-bar.
An I-bar link that, and guys, part 1, I go into a little bit too much in depth on how it was built. And the fact that there are still some remaining, which is nuts.
We have some in the museum,
Yeah, I'm like, well, not just that, but I'm talking like actual bridges that are built
the
that way.
sister bridges.
I'm like, y'all probably should change that. Because the redundancy is non-existent. If one goes,
then that's
everything goes.
We got to kind of listen to that, This isn't a warning shot. This is
but anyway, but I believe in the science of it, that there was metal fatigue, and then that it cracked and broke, and it was built in 1928, so it was not built for the traffic conditions that we even had back in 66, you know?
No, absolutely not. And especially at the time, because it was Christmas time, you know, it was what, 11 days
Mhm.
before, 12 days before Christmas, something like that.
And that's what makes it even more tragic, is that all those,
exactly.
you read the names, like, little side note here behind the scenes. We're technically recording this before recording part 1. So there we go. In part 1, I've debated, do I read all the names or do I not? I'm thinking about reading the names, but those of you who are listening, you'll know, because if you hear the names, then you'll know what I made the decision on. But they're families, like they're literal, like the same last name, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. All in total, 46 people died in this tragedy. You know, imagine the bridge fully at capacity with just vehicles stacked up in traffic, which makes sense because it was Christmas time. The bridge is actually kind of small, wasn't it? It wasn't like a wide bridge.
Yeah, it was a small bridge, and the combined weight and the age of the whole thing.
Yeah.
It just
Mhm.
like
It was too much.
yeah, and the for years, because of the river, you know, culture and business that had picked up in Point Pleasant specifically, and even Gallipolis, it caused, you know, it made the more people that went over it, though the worse it got, you know, and it
And then
was
you got
never
talking
kept
about
up
all the
with.
winters with the salt and
Yeah.
the sand and
The freezing and the thawing, and it's just, yeah.
yeah. So I grew up I grew up at a river town, believe it or not.
There
So
you
I
go.
was looking at pictures of Point Pleasant. I'm like, man, it reminds me of my hometown a little bit. You know, with the flood wall that kind of like leads up to the actual town. And
Kind of
so
forget that people don't have floods where they live.
that they don't
Sometimes
have
people
that.
yeah, they'll come in and they'll be like, "What are those big walls?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, sometimes the river revolts."
Yeah.
And so we
So
had to prevent that.
I grew up basically within a 8-mile span, a 8-mile radius of the Mississippi River. In Cape Girardeau, Missouri is where I was born, and then I was raised in Jackson, Missouri, which is a small town right next to it. But with Cape, they had an old bridge that was kind of not like that. It was a truss bridge, and it spanned across the whole Mississippi. And that sucker was built in the 20s, and it was spooky to drive across because, like,
Yeah.
it would sway, and like if you passed a semi, like you'd almost feel like you're going to get blown off. So in 2004, they ended up detonating it, and they built a new bridge. And then there's a town just north of Cape. It's the only other crossing other than St. Louis. The Chester Bridge, which if you watched, I watched some drone footage of it recently because they built a new bridge and they're going to tear that one down too. And it's the same age as the old Cape Bridge. Holy crap. The amount of holes that are in girders, and like underneath you see like plywood holding up concrete pads. I'm like, I drove over that
Was this
like
allowed?
a lot.
Yeah.
Like, how did this even, well, it was within minimums. I'm like, what? Like, define within minimums.
Yeah. What
Like,
do you mean?
Like, anyway, I digress. But yeah, so
And
they are
that's
tearing that one
crazy. I
down.
mean, we think about that too, you know, like it's always a big deal. And it honestly, I think it was an even bigger deal because those bridges are so integral to the business and the daily lives of the people who live in those towns. And so, I mean, when the bridge collapsed, you had to go like 30, 45 minutes out of your way to get over to
Literally next door.
What used to just be a 15-minute drive.
One of the fascinating things about the paranormal community is everyone has a story. Listener files are officially back here on Cryptwalkers, and I want to tell your story. If you've had a brush with the unexplained, seen something that defies rationale, or experienced something spooky, email me at contact@cryptwalkers.net. Just make sure to put listener file in the subject line, and let me know how you want to be credited whether it's your real name, a pseudonym, or if you prefer to remain completely anonymous. I don't know, man. It's your story. I'm just here to tell it. Now, back to the show.
That's another big thing too, is that like it really is debilitating to these towns when that sort of stuff happens, and especially when it's unexpected like that.
Mhm.
So I totally get it. Yeah.
Now, has there ever been a tragedy in the Point Pleasant area that's been that massive? I'm thinking from a first responder's perspective.
Mm.
Like, was the town equipped to handle this, or was it not? Like, because some areas can be well developed, but they don't really have all the materials nor the power or the manpower to do what they,
Right.
what you need to do for the rescue and all the things.
Well, I think we were pretty decently well equipped, and I think it was more of a I don't think anyone could have ever predicted or expected that, especially at the time. And I think the people at the time, they came in very quickly. People on, who just had boats, sitting on the river, just so happened they would all coming through. Anyone who lived on the river, rescue boats, anything that they could possibly find. People who were working at there's a plant on the river, downriver from Point Pleasant. And barges and stuff were coming through and trying to pick up whatever they could, metal and stuff like that. But honestly, other than that, the only other thing that has really been so tragic is the floods that happened. There were it happened a lot I think there was a big one in like the 70s, mid 70s. That caused a lot of damage, and also lives lost during that, time as well. But there were several floods. We haven't had a big one in a long time. But we have markers, on the bridge, like you said, showing you exactly how high the water's gotten. And sometimes it's taller than the buildings on Main Street. So it's like absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's like that at Cape, where it's funny because they built a flood wall, I think in the 60s. And stuff's about to get rough when you see those doors closed. But there's marks on the flood wall from where after it was built, and then there's also like historical markers on how high the water got. And there's a famous restaurant that's literally just right off. Like, here's the river, then you walk 50 feet, you go through the flood door, and then there's this restaurant that's from the 1800s, like pre-Civil War. And it's actually famous because Grant was actually there for a period of time when he was overseeing Cape. It's called the Port Cape. Great restaurant. If you're ever in Cape Girardeau and you come off the riverboat, you gotta check it out. Anyway, but there's pictures inside this restaurant of like historical photos from like 1920s, early 1900s of there's a railroad line that's still there, just on the other side of the flood wall. Well, it was there before the flood wall, and there's a steam engine that's like literally the water's all the way up to the cab, and it's still going. And the water goes straight through the buildings, and the buildings were kind of built to handle, the constant flooding. So like anything on the first floor is almost, I wouldn't say waterproof, but everything's just brick. So it's easy to clean up. And everything upstairs, and it's all wood, and whatnot. But, it's just interesting how these river towns just kind of adapt to that way of life. And
they really, they don't give up. They just dig their heels in and say, okay, well, if you're going to flood, then we'll just clean it up after. And that's like
build stuff to float.
Nothing else. Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, going back to the Mothman. So obviously there was the bridge situation, and the general idea is that was it. Never saw the Mothman again. It wasn't like a planned thing, right? It wasn't like everybody got together and it's like, okay, well, we're just going to pretend none of this happened, or we're going to stop, talking about all this stuff. I mean, there was a true fear that was going around.
Absolutely.
So Like, do you know of anything, being a resident of Point Pleasant, being in the rumor mill, so to speak, stuff that isn't on the news or in papers? Has there ever been any sighting since, or people even talking about any sort of weird sightings of anything? Or
Well, I've especially the last couple of years, there's been what we call Sand Hill. Sand Hill is just like a road, one of the many windy back roads through Point Pleasant that takes you to different towns and stuff like that. But Sand Hill, Jericho, TNT, Potter's Creek, a lot of those people have claimed to see weird lights in the sky and stuff like that mostly. But we haven't had a legitimate Mothman sighting since about the 70s or 80s. My boss has talked to a couple of people who have some credible sightings, but nothing that is worth, like, at least that he sees as like a huge credible, like this is a really big deal type of thing. I mean, we get calls, people call in and say that they've seen a big one recently was Mothman was sighted at the O'Hare Airport, in Chicago, I think it is.
Yeah, in Chicago,
Yeah.
I came across that when I was doing my research.
So, I mean, in Point Pleasant, not really, other than like the weird purple lights in the sky that people see every so often. But no Mothman, unfortunately, but we're still holding out hope that he'll come back.
Like, come
Without
on,
the
we got a
Harbinger of
fan
Doom
base.
part.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, like,
I mean,
come on.
especially now, like that, the whole pop culture of it has really, really blown up.
Yeah.
And I mean, if he decides that he wants to do some copyright stuff, then he could make a lot of money. So, never know.
Oh man,
But yeah,
Could you imagine like opening the museum one day and like he's just standing there, like in the museum?
I think about it. I live out right now. I live out in the woods, down one of those twisty, windy roads, and sometimes I'll sit outside and I'm just standing there in the middle of the night, and I'm like, "This is your time," like. They would believe me. They would believe me if I told you, if I told them that I saw Mothman. Come on, Mothman, just let me see you, and they would believe me. But he hasn't yet.
I've seen. It brings back a memory for some reason. It has nothing to do with the Mothman, but years ago I was moving out to Los Angeles. I was 20. Yeah, I was 20, and I packed everything up in my Camaro, and me and my dad and my older brother Alex, we drove out to LA, and then they flew back. So we were doing a speed run, and we decided to take Route 66, and then we actually diverted and went out to the Grand Canyon because it's the Grand Canyon. And so this is broad daylight. Yeah, I went in Rome. This is broad daylight, and I swear to God, there was this, what do they call it? A California condor, I think. It's like this massive freaking bird. And I have to describe this because people can't see what I'm doing. But this bird, and we have pictures of this, right? So imagine people lined up at this, basically a fence line, right? Which then there's the Grand Canyon. Like literally, if you fall over it, you're gonna fall like thousands of feet, right? There's this cliff, and then on the edge of the cliff, there's this California condor, who is like standing there like this, like with a pose, just like nonchalant. And he has his wings out so we could all take pictures of it. And he keeps moving his head back and forth, like, look at me. And it's like 8 feet long, like his wingspan. And it makes me think of the Mothman when you described that, because I was like, oh my God, if I imagine that being the. And this thing is kind of terrifying. This sucker could like pick up a child,
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot of people, especially with like the Native American culture and stuff in and around Point Pleasant. That was like the big battle of Point Pleasant. That was we are on Native American land fully, and because there's also been talks of, perhaps there is a curse that happened, but also lots of talk of thunderbirds, which were a big thing, in Native American culture and stuff like that. And were supposedly seen in and around the area, when we were first settling in Point Pleasant. And it's said that, one of the major chiefs that not ruled over, but like was in charge of this area, Chief Cornstalk. Have you heard anything about the Chief Cornstalk legend?
I've heard nothing. And I tell you what, though, you're going to hear about it in part 1 now.
There you go. But that's another really cool part about it is that, and that's the thing is that there's so many things that people like to blame it on, like just the existence of Mothman. And Chief Cornstalk is a big part of that. Because it is said that there's this whole big, long, complicated story. But the settlers of Point Pleasant ended up murdering him and his 2 sons during some kind of... Yeah, seriously. They ended up being murdered, unfortunately, by settlers, and it's said that Chief Cornstalk cursed the town of Point Pleasant for 200 years. And so people are like, okay, so is this Mothman thing happening now because Chief Cornstalk? But at the museum, we kind of think of
really
Mothman as...
Acknowledge it, really?
I mean, there's no, like, factual evidence. Like, the reason we think that was because there was a play that we had found in, like, an old school that we were tearing down at some time. And they found the play and written in it. That scene had been written in. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of how that started circulating. So if you hear anything about Chief Cornstalk was a real guy, but, and they were eventually moved out of the Point Pleasant area,
that points to the folklore, though. I mean,
yes,
that's where I'm like, even like whether you believe any of this or not, there's always some grain of like truth here. You know, and it could just simply be in the community zeitgeist, right? People grew up hearing about this legend, and it would make sense that it would tie in, right? Because I could understand if I lived there and I kind of grew up hearing this tale, and then all of a sudden this crazy stuff starts happening, and everybody's witnessing it, and then all of a sudden at the very end, there's this massive tragic bridge collapse. I mean, yeah, I'd be like, okay, well, that might be a curse.
Yeah. Seems pretty curse-like to me.
We, as a society, effed around, and we found out.
Pretty hard. We found out pretty hard, yeah.
Yeah. No, but I'm gonna explore that a little bit because I like. This is one reason why I really love doing interviews before I actually record part 1, is because I didn't come across any of that at all. And I think the reason why is because, I mean, even you guys said that you guys don't really embrace that. It's just kind of, you stick to the facts of the case, which makes sense. The news articles, the witness testimonies, the police reports, and all this stuff. But I do find it interesting. The filmmaker in me, the storyteller in me, really likes the concept of a curse type story, you know what I mean? But,
absolutely. I mean, it does definitely make it a little bit more, I think makes it more spooky in a lot of ways with that. Yeah. And I think a lot of the reason that we don't really acknowledge that, like you said, is because we don't know exactly who said what at the time, but also there's there's a couple families in town that say that they have relation to Chief Cornstalk. And I think so out of respect. And also we kind of, I don't know who it was or who did it, but Chief Cornstalk is now buried at Towindawi State Park, which is at the corner of Point Pleasant. It's where like you see the 2 rivers come together. And so out of respect, we do our best to not highlight, all of that. And also whatever artifacts are part of that totally have nothing to do with us. So I think I really appreciate that's kind of the mindset we have about it, is that we're also not incriminating or blaming Chief Cornstalk for any of that stuff. Because some people do. They come in and they're like, well, what the heck, Chief Cornstalk? I can't believe you'd do that to us.
Why'd you do that to us? Yeah.
Well, because we killed his 2 sons, supposedly, and him. So, I can't blame him.
I would do it.
Yeah, I would. If that happened to me, I would curse them.
If the first conversation I have with God on the pearly gates is, hey, do you want to, put a curse on the people who did this to you? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sign me up.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's crazy. That's crazy. Every town kind of has like founding families, I guess you could say. Would you say that, was the founding family still present heavily in Mount Pleasant when this all occurred? Not Mount Pleasant.
Honestly?
Point Pleasant. I told you I was going to do that. In
Like it happens all the time.
my God, yeah.
I honestly
Well,
don't know. I know there's a lot of like prominent families, in Point Pleasant, but I don't really know of any that kind of had like like a deep seated tie to
mhm.
the whole thing. The mayor at the time, I know his parents were unfortunately on the Silver Bridge when it collapsed. He lost his parents. So, I mean, it was kind of just
Man.
everybody. Yeah, it did not matter. Like, everyone had somebody that they knew
Mhm.
that, passed away on the bridge. But I honestly, as far as I know, there weren't anybody. Now, off camera, there could have possibly been some crazy, like, not mafia stuff, but like weird, like underground business stuff going on in Point Pleasant at the time. But it is completely unrelated to Mothman, as far as I know. When you look into it, but other than
Some
that, I
true
can't really
crime
think of
there.
any
Yeah.
references. Yeah,
Some true
yeah. There's
crime, yeah.
some other stuff going on, but that doesn't have anything to do with Mothman.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
The we never even mentioned them. We talked about the UFOs. We talked about all the things. The Men in Black.
Yes.
I'm not talking Will Smith. I'm talking creepy government-looking employees that just suddenly show up and like, hey, you didn't see anything. I'll admit at this time I haven't really had much research on it. I just know that every time I look it up, there's always Men in Black, Men in Black, Men in Black, Men in Black. And like I said, the UFO world is not my comfort zone, so I'm completely out of it. Do you have anything to add to anything with the Men in Black things?
I sure do. So there have been some really weird Men in Black incidences in Point Pleasant. And that's the crazy thing about it, is that if you ask the older generation who was in Point Pleasant at the time, and even if you ask somebody who doesn't believe in Mothman, is against Mothman, never claimed to see Mothman, any of that stuff, they will tell you that there were Men in Black on Main Street in the 60s. They were coming to people's place of work. They were coming to their home. They were following them home. They were calling them, like, all kinds of crazy stuff. There's been claims that there was a Man in Black pulled up in a black SUV and tried to pull a woman into the van while she was checking the mailbox, ripped her shirt up and everything, like being very aggressive and scaring these people a lot because they're, related to someone who maybe said that they had seen the Mothman or a UFO. Same thing with Woody Derenberger. He had some Men in Black experiences. John Keel said he had, mail be intercepted and weird phone calls. And he always had this feeling that someone was following him. So anyone who was kind of closely related to the Mothman case or the paranormal cases at the time, the Men in Black were very much like a big part, of that whole thing, because they were actively going for people and they were trying to get them to either be quiet about it, scare them out of town, or convince them that they did not see what they saw.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, don't talk to anybody about this. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's my basic understanding of the Men in Black in total is, and it usually occurs when you have a lot of UFO activity or anything that's remotely along those lines. The Men in Black will show up later, and I mean that's the reason why we made movie series on it. You know what I mean? Like as a joke. It was like, oh well, aliens live among us, and they're staring to this little red light. These are the guys
that are supposed to be wrangling them, whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, who knows what the government's part of? I mean, I spoke with there's a gentleman I worked with who was in the Navy for decades. And he was like, oh no, dude, we had internet like back in the 80s. Like internet existed back in the 80s. Like that was something the military used, like fully. Bluetooth was invented by, and this is documented. I forget her name. She deserves the credit. She doesn't get the credit, but she deserves the credit, and it pains me that I'm forgetting her name right now. but she was an actress in during the World War II era. But she was also like an inventor, and she ended up inventing Bluetooth in the 40s. And
that's crazy.
so we have the technology to do Bluetooth way back then. And this is a fact. You can look this up. The beginnings of Bluetooth began in the 40s. We had to develop the technology further, but I fully believe that our Navy was probably using an early form of the internet. I'm not saying that it was the best internet in the world, but it was something that they didn't have in the 80s. Like the people don't have it,
Yeah. It's not widespread.
Yeah. Cape Girardeau, we'll cover it at some point, had a UFO landing. Actually, where I say landing, it crashed, and there was tons of witnesses. Men in Black showed up, by the way. And where that crash was is literally where the Cape Central football field is today. Like, it's literally right where it sits. That's where it happened. And I kid you
Almost
not,
like they were trying to cover that up or something.
There's been some weird stuff that has happened. Now, granted, Cape Central was not built. This is what we call the new building. It was built in like 2002 or something. And then they built the stadium/football field. I'm going to date myself. Back in 2011, 2012, somewhere around there. I remember it was brand new when I got there into high school. But the local university has it pegged as, yes, this is where that occurrence happened, which back then it would have just been a farmer's field.
Right.
But yeah, so if you ever go to a football game, you're literally looking at where the thing crashed.
Which is awesome. I wish we have had, there's I don't know if you've ever heard of Flatwoods, West Virginia. It's in Sutton. There is what is called the Flatwoods Monster, and that was kind of, I think it's like 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour from Point Pleasant. But it's a very small town. And back in 52, 53, they had some alien crash landing situations, and that sprouted the Flatwoods Monster. There's a museum there for that now. And then down the street from the Flatwoods Museum, there's a Bigfoot museum. So, I mean, and yet it crash landed in the middle of some farm fields and stuff, and some teenagers went out and found it in the middle of the night. And it just, that stuff happened. The more you look into it, the more you find, like, that stuff happens everywhere.
Oh, God. Okay, so I guess, we'll start kind of wrapping it up, because I recently had some listener input. They were like, hey, we kind of, keep it like an hour. It's very easy if it's within an hour or whatnot. So I was like, all right, I'll try my best. So, but I'll be honest with you, when it comes to like unfiltered stuff, which that's what I love about these part twos. I love talking with people who are actually on the ground there, see it. It's not just, I'm not just reading it in a newspaper article or anything like that. Like, and can talk about the area and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely make it as unfiltered as possible, so that way everybody listening gets it as it happens, as it is, as the conversation is.
Right.
And so yeah, if it becomes an hour and a half, I'm assuming it's pretty interesting. That's the reason why it's an hour and a half. But then again, I could sit there and listen to like shows like Astonishing Legends, which, by the way, if you're into podcasts, I highly recommend check out Astonishing Legends. It's kind of what got me into all this. But Astonishing Legends, they are not easy to just, like, they did the Mothman, right? But they did multi-parts, and each part is like 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Holy crap. There's just so much.
They did the Snyder version. They did the Snyder cut of the whole Mothman thing. And instead of 2 hours, it was like 6. Yeah. Honestly, if you can go that in depth, if you can find that much information, like, people love that. If you can break down every single thing, go for it.
Okay, now I'm going off a tangent on Astonishing Legends. But these guys, okay, one day I hope that they listen to my show and they hear this. First of all, they're very good at what they do. I really love their show. But one year they did 10 parts I kid you not, 10 parts on the Sally House in Atchison, Kansas. And it was all over. It was a very cool EVP, by the way. Of one EVP, this one EVP just blew their minds, changed their whole world. Like, one of the hosts was like skeptical, like believed and wanted to believe, but was like it was like, oh God, what's the Fox and Mulder? You know who I'm talking about? From that one show, X-Files. It was literally that type of partnership. One was a believer, one was like, I kind of believe, it's kind of cool, whatever. And from that point on, no, they're both full on. And all it was one EVP, but they did their due diligence. They tried to debunk it. They talked about the device. They had guests on the show who were, experts in their field, and it was awesome. But it was a 10-part series, and each episode was like 3 hours. I'm like, but by the end of it, I'm like, God, it's great. I'm sitting there just listening to it all. But anyway,
the gift that keeps on giving.
I'll stop rambling about another podcast now. So
I'll have to check that out, though.
It's funny because I love listening to podcasts, but with my brothers, it's like pulling teeth to get them to listen to my show to get feedback, because apparently the younger generation aren't into the podcasts so much.
It's the attention spans. I personally, I love podcasts. I am especially a big fan of like D&D podcasts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just it's so difficult to, sit down or even just watch a movie. Like, that's when I go ask my friends to go and watch a movie with me, it's like, I don't want to sit there for an hour and a half. I'm like, but you're watching, but there's like an entertainment happening the entire time. Like, what do you mean,
Yep.
But, oh well.
To defend my brothers, to give them a little bit of credit here. They have told me that they can't, the way their mind works is that, like, it's not like me where I can listen to a podcast and be doing stuff. For them, they do have to stop and listen to the show. Like, and with busy lives, it's kind of hard to do. Me, I'm wired to where, I'll be driving around on a 12-hour shift, especially if it's a night shift. We're mostly just driving in circles anyway. And I'll be listening to a paranormal podcast. I'm not going to lie. There have been times where I've pulled over somebody, got out, and literally on dash camera and everything, because my phone just clicks on, all you're hearing is a paranormal podcast, and it's like, or true crime, while I'm sitting up there doing a traffic stop, and I'm like, oh my God, at some point my sergeant's just gonna dude.
Come on. Let me have a little bit of fun. Let me listen to my fun stuff.
So there's nothing wrong with it. But I've seen the infamous video where it was dash cam footage and dude's conducting a traffic stop, and then they get in a fight with the guy, and meanwhile it's just in the car, all you hear is, I like big butts and I cannot lie. This can't deny.
Just Britney Spears going crazy in the back. I love that. It just
so happens that they're tackling this really big fat dude just with the biggest and it's just playing that the whole fitting. Time. Yep. Anyway, awesome. Sorry. I can digress. But to start winding it up. So is there shameless plug for the museum? Is there anything you want us to know about it?
Honestly, we have been doing a lot, especially these last couple of years. We obviously have the Mothman Festival coming up this September, the 19th and the 20th. We're expecting a pretty big turnout for that. Last year, we had about 34,000 people in Point Pleasant during the festival. So that's pretty exciting. Most of which were there for the festival. So if you're planning to come, just know that it's going to be crazy, but it is a lot of fun. We also have, we opened an escape room a couple years, maybe a year or so back. Pretty fun if you're ever in town on Saturday or Sunday, come up and do our escape room. We have a Blacklight Mothman mini golf as well that's open 7 days a week. And the museum's open 7 days a week as well. But we also have we've been trying to get more into the social media stuff, because like you said, that really does help. and we actually have a sketch comedy show that is done completely by people who work at the museum. It is called Moth Brood. We are planning to release 52 episodes every Friday, so one episode every Friday for a year. We have 28 out right now. And if
Really?
you guys are, if you're into cryptid adjacent, it's not about cryptids. It's about, we have Mothman root beer that we brew right upstairs at the Point Pleasant Trading Company, and we have it on tap there too. And it's kind of a Cheers style, thing. But we get into some crazy, crazy stuff. If you're into that kind of weird thing, that weird stuff, check it out. It is written, produced, edited, acted, scored completely by people who work at the Mothman Museum. So if you're into that sort of thing, it's really funny too. I hate to say it just because I'm a part of it, but it is pretty funny. So if you're into that, then highly recommend checking it out. Moth Brood.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was a theater kid myself, so I can totally relate. That's actually right up my alley. I would actually love to be a part of that if I was nearby. But, well, anyway,
happen.
Well, like I said, next year I want to get out there. I want to actually go explore, especially the East Coast, but I would like to actually check out Point Pleasant. So and check you guys out. But in the meantime, you guys who are listening, if you guys want to check them out, you can actually click the direct link to their website by clicking the link in the show notes. So it's actually going to be down there. It'll say Mothman Museum. So you can follow them on all their socials and be able to check all that comedy stuff out. So that'd be really cool. So one last question that I have for you, Olivia. If you were driving down a back road near the TNT area tonight, let's say after we get off this call, and you saw two red eyes in the dark, what is the very first thing you'd do?
I am parking on the side of the road and I am getting out of that vehicle. I'm not hurting Mothman. I don't own any weapons or anything, other than like a pocket knife, but like I am doing whatever I can to communicate with this creature. And that's another thing about the museum is that we try to think of him as more of like a warning sign, like he was trying to warn the people of Point Pleasant before the bridge collapse. Because, like, if you ask people in Point Pleasant, they'll tell you that they did not see Mothman on the bridge the day that it fell. That was, like, a media thing that they threw in there, popularized then by John Keel in the movie. So I'm getting out of the car, and I'm putting my hands up, and I'm saying, listen, dude, let's just talk. Just for, like, 1 second. Or screech at each other, or however we can do this. Because I got some people who'd really like to talk to you. So... That's what I would do, I think. I mean, obviously, that's what I think. That's what I would want to do. But I don't think that that's what in the moment, maybe not my reaction.
Yeah.
But for now, that's what we'll say.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, all jokes aside, I mean, if I actually saw a cryptid like the Mothman in front of me, I would. First, I try to record it, which good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck, especially with me because I barely know how to work an iPhone. I'd probably do exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. So just to kind of wind down for the night, Olivia, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. This has been an absolute pleasure and an absolute blast. And when I get out there to visit Point Pleasant, I'm going to have to look you guys up. So. Oh,
absolutely. And like I said, we're open 7 days a week, so you'll always be able to find us somehow. But thank you so much for having me on. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on sometime in some other form or fashion. Especially, maybe we'll do a Redux sometime in the future. So where we cover the Mothman again. But
heck yeah.
Anyway, guys, just before we close out, a little bit of housekeeping things. I am in need of some listener stories. As you know, we've changed the format to our listener files. Basically ever since track 4. And it's really good, and I'm getting a lot of good feedback. But I still need stories from you guys. So if you could send them to me at contact@cryptwalkers.net. You can just put my story in the subject line. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I mean, to put it in perspective, I've taken down stories just by word of mouth, and it's like literally, it'd be the equivalent of a paragraph long. So, and then I put all the other stuff in there, and I send it back to you guys and make sure that, hey, we're still staying true to the subject matter, and it's also entertaining. So please follow us wherever you guys get your podcasts, and please feel free to give us a review. Your feedback is not only appreciated, but it's really needed, because it helps kind of help us find our footing in the paranormal world, as well as in the algorithms and whatnot. So thank you so much, and stick around and listen to the next trailer for our next case. Thanks for listening, and until next time, Ryder out.
Next time on Cryptwalkers.
If you ask any serious paranormal investigator about the Midwest, one name will come up time and time again: Ashmore Estates. It's a building where history isn't just remembered, it feels alive. From its origins as a county poor farm to its darker days as a private psychiatric asylum, the walls of Ashmore have witnessed decades of human grief. And according to those who have braved spending the night inside, those memories are still reaching out from the dark. Join us on the next episode of Cryptwalkers as we break down the history, the claims, and the haunting evidence surrounding Ashmore Estates. The doors are opening. Are you brave enough to step inside? Case 16, Ashmore Estates, airs Wednesday, September 2nd, wherever you get your podcasts.